Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something absolutely fascinating. We're looking at a framework by an author named Xu Feng. It takes the hard mathematical science of thermodynamics, specifically the laws of entropy, and applies it directly to human vitality, mental health, and how we just live our daily lives. It's this incredible bridge between physics and psychology that attempts to explain why some people and societies totally thrive, while others just wither away.
Okay, let's dive right into how we're going to cover this. First, openness versus isolation. Second, the law of entropy. Third, absorbing negative entropy. Fourth, the Life Chen Yuan approach. And finally, number 5, staying open to thrive.
To kick things off, the source text hits us right out of the gate with a highly provocative question. What is the primary symptom of depression? Now, clinically, you might think of a whole variety of answers, but Xu Feng identifies the absolute core symptom as a deep fear of contact. Basically, it's the act of refusing to communicate with others and fundamentally closing yourself off from the world. The author argues that shutting down this external exchange, that is the very root of losing our life force.
Let's get right into section 1, openness versus isolation. The author paints a really vivid, honestly almost startling picture here. The text states, if you confine a lively, intelligent, and wise person, keeping them locked in a room for 3 or 5 years, what will happen? They will become fools, walking corpses, or even go insane and die. The assertion here is stark, for sure, but it's entirely logical. Completely cutting off physical, mental, and social interaction doesn't just make you lonely, it actively drains your life energy. Without that external input, our internal systems literally begin to collapse. And this brilliantly illustrates how the author scales this concept up from the individual right up to the macro level. According to the text, the condition of a single human life is exactly the same as the state of an entire nation. An open life and an open nation is inclusive, vibrant, civilized, and developing. On the flip side, a closed life or a closed nation becomes rigid, backward, ignorant, and ultimately tends toward death. It's presented as a universal rule. To thrive, you absolutely need exchange. Now, you might be thinking of an obvious contradiction here, and the author actually addresses it directly with a really fascinating caveat about stress. Think about it. Why do some isolated farmers in remote villages live these long, healthy lives, while hyper-connected city workers who are constantly bombarded with information just burn out and suffer from depression? Well, the text clarifies that stress levels are a totally separate factor from pure information exchange. High stress weakens life and shortens it, regardless of how quote-unquote open your environment is. So while openness is vital, it really has to be balanced with low stress to truly promote longevity. Moving on to section 2, the law of entropy. So what exactly is entropy? Based on the source text definition, which is pulled straight from the laws of thermodynamics, energy is always conserved, but as it transforms, some of it is inevitably wasted and can just no longer be used. That wasted energy, that's entropy. The absolute hard scientific rule here is that in an isolated system, meaning a system that is completely closed off, this entropy value will inevitably increase. Without new energy flowing in, the system simply wastes away until it collapses entirely. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. The author takes this cold physical law of the universe and applies it directly to the human soul and body. The text frames entropy as the ultimate enemy of vitality. If isolation causes entropy to increase and entropy causes collapse, well, the logical conclusion is crystal clear. Preventing the increase of entropy is the single most effective way to cherish life. Which brings us to section 3, absorbing negative entropy. So how do we actually fight this? To stop entropy, you need its opposite. Negative entropy is anything that counteracts the increase of entropy in a system. And the author is super clear that we aren't just talking about physical food or warmth here. This includes material, mental, and spiritual energy. It is that critical, fresh energy needed to break into an isolated system and basically rescue it from its inevitable slow collapse. To make this abstract physics concept a lot easier to visualize, the author uses this really striking metaphor. Quote, if a puddle of water is not replenished with fresh water, it will soon become stagnant and foul. But by constantly adding fresh water and letting the old water flow out, the puddle stays pure. That fresh water is negative entropy. Just like eating, drinking, and, excreting every day, our minds and spirits need a constant flowing stream of fresh input to keep from becoming a stagnant puddle. Let's look at how literal this can actually be in the real world. The text gives 2 pretty stark examples of applying negative entropy to save a person's life. Let's say someone is suicidal over a failed relationship. Their emotional entropy has totally maxed out. At that point, comforting words just aren't going to fix it. The negative entropy solution? Introduce them to a new, attractive person to fall in love with. Boom, system reset. Similarly, if a person loses faith in life because of severe financial ruin, just offering comforting words is pretty useless. The actual negative entropy they need in that moment is direct financial assistance. Giving them money directly restores the system's balance. You literally have to inject exactly what the system is missing.
Let's look at how this is applied in practice in Section 4, the Life Shanyan approach.
According to the text, members of the Life Shenyuan group actively attempt to maintain their vitality by deliberately breaking away from traditional mindsets. The author views rigid, lifeless daily routines and traditional social expectations as inherently high entropy. They're essentially those stagnant puddles we just talked about. Therefore, the group's objective is to completely abandon those routines in favor of adopting a brand new negative entropy mindset, one that forces a constant exchange of energy.
To really drive this approach home, the author provides another excellent, very modern metaphor. Quote, "This is like reformatting a computer nearing crash and installing new software, rejuvenating it." The core belief here is that when a system, and that could be an individual person, a massive corporate enterprise, or an entire nation, when it becomes stagnant and filled with despair, you can't just patch it. It has to be completely replaced and reformatted. If it isn't reformatted with fresh software or negative entropy, the text states it will undoubtedly perish.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, staying open to thrive.
So, here is a distilled checklist of action items straight from the source text. To absorb negative entropy, the author insists you have to do a few things. You need to participate in continuous learning, venture out while actively welcoming others in, and maintain an incredibly open mind and soul. Crucially, you must communicate with people who hold differing perspectives from your own. And perhaps the hardest ones of all, you have to constantly discard your past knowledge and experiences and never, ever assume you are always right. Being rigid in your rightness is the definition of a closed system. Discarding the past is exactly what allows that fresh water into the puddle. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a really big question to reflect on, based entirely on Shufeng's framework. Take a look at your daily habits, your social circles, and the way you consume information. Is your personal system actively absorbing fresh negative entropy? Are you letting fresh water into your puddle? Or, without even realizing it, are you slowly closing yourself off and letting the entropy rise? It's a seriously powerful lens through which to view your own life force. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your systems open.